Now, last time when we looked at this, boys and girls, if you remember, Amy Carmichael had taken in a young girl from the local surrounding area who'd been sent to the temple. Can anyone remember what the name of the young girl is that Amy rescued? Oh, wow, good memory. That is indeed. That was Prina. Now, Prina had been mistreated in the temple. She'd been punished for running away, but when Amy saw her at her door, Amy took her in. And the other missionaries were asking Amy later, they said, well, why did you do this? Why did you want to help Prina when there's lots of people out here who need to hear about Jesus? You can't run a nursery and be a missionary. Well, when Amy was younger, growing up in Ireland, a long, long time ago now, but in those days in Ireland there were no cars, there were no trains. If you wanted to carry something, you had to either put it on a cart or put it on your back. And when Amy was young in Ireland, she saw an old woman struggling along with a big burden on her back in the pouring rain, and people weren't helping her. This old lady was really, really in difficulty. She wasn't well dressed, she hadn't washed in a long time, and Amy thought, even though Amy was young, she thought, well, I'm going to help. It's not right that she's struggling like this. So Amy went over to the old lady and she took the load off the old lady's back, put it on her own, and helped the old lady get along the road to her destination. And Amy looked around and she thought, well, okay, I'm struggling too. Surely other people are going to help me. But when Amy looked around, she saw that other people, the well-dressed people, were laughing. They'd seen what Amy was doing. They'd seen the old woman struggling. And they thought it was strange that Amy, who was actually quite well-dressed, well-kept, she was clean, they thought it was strange that Amy was helping this old lady. And it always stuck with Amy. Amy thought, why didn't people want to help? And that night, even though she was young, Amy had thought, well, was it worth me doing this? Was it worth me getting myself all dirty? Was it worth me getting soaked in the rain just to help this old lady up the street? But she thought about it and she realized that although no one else had appreciated what she'd done, God did care. God remembered what Amy had done because God cared about the old woman and God cares about the things that he commands in the Bible, loving thy neighbor and helping those who need help. So when Amy was older and Prina had come to her door looking for help, Amy had thought, even if no one else appreciates what I'm doing here, God will be pleased if I help Prina. And Prina was helped as a result. And then Amy started to think, well, there must be other girls like Prina, other young girls and boys, who are in the temple or about to be sold to the temple who need rescuing as well. And so Amy would dress up, that's her in blue there, she would dress up like one of the local ladies, and Amy would go and try and gather information on the temple. She would try and find out how it was that children were getting sold or adopted, donated to the temple each day. And as Amy would sit there in the tea houses, in the shops, in meetings, listening to what people would say, she would start to hear little bits of information. On one occasion, she heard that a man, he'd lost his wife, tragically, and the man had thought, well, I don't want to raise a daughter that we've got on her own. I'll just donate her to the temple. And on another occasion, Amy and another missionary friend were out on a missionary journey. They needed somewhere to stay. So they saw a farmhouse, quite a poor family were living there, and they said, well, can we stay here? And the family said, yes, there is a cow shed around the back. You can sleep there. It's nice and warm. And as they were sleeping there that night, they woke up to hearing an argument in the house, and the family, who were quite poor, were arguing over whether or not they should sell one of their children to the temple to make a bit of money. And so Amy started to pray. She started to pray to God and say, well, if you want me to help these children, please provide the funds necessary to be able to take these children before they go into the temple. And one day, Amy heard that there was a man who was looking to sell his daughter to the temple. He needed money. He didn't want to look after his daughter. So he'd gone to the temple and he'd offered his daughter. But he'd also heard that Amy might be willing to pay to rescue the daughter as well. So the man said, well, Amy, I'll sell my daughter to you for 100 rupees. Now, in those days, 100 rupees equates to about $600 today, so about the price of an iPhone, so that's how much his daughter was worth to him. And Amy thought, I don't know if it's right to be paying for another human being. I don't know if it's right to buy this little girl, but I don't want her to go to the temple. So Amy prayed to God. She said, Lord, if you want me to rescue this little girl, please provide the 100 rupees, and then I'll know that you want me to do it. And she prayed with her friends. She didn't tell anyone outside the immediate circle about this, but a few days later, another missionary in a different area was writing a check to Amy, and he put 100 rupees, and he sent it off, and Amy received the check, and she thought, this is what God wants me to do. So Amy bought the little girl off the man for 100 rupees. And soon, Amy had gathered 16 children to herself who would have gone to the temple. She'd rescued them. Now, the other missionaries were looking at and wondering what Amy was doing. They were asking her, Amy, you can either run a missionary organization or you can run a nursery, but we're not sure you can do both. This is a lot of work involved in looking after all these children. And Amy thought, well, yeah, there are a lot of children now. We're going to have to get a new house. So Amy started to look for a place to live. And they found an area called Donavar, where there were a lot of trees that were harvested. And there was a space in the land where the trees had been. And so Amy got a rundown house for the children. And unfortunately, those days, boys and girls, you didn't hire builders. If you wanted to fix a house, you had to do it yourself. So Amy and the children moved into this house and began to do it up themselves. And they made a place that was fresh. It had fresh drinking water. It had a nice warm roof over their heads. And they began to tell the other boys and girls in the area about Jesus and what he had done for them. Now, there was a girl in one of the local villages whose name was Jewel of Victory, so we'll call her Jewel, and she was an idol worshipper. Her family would worship idols. They believed that these gods behind the idols would rescue them from their sins, so they knew they were sinners, but they thought that by lighting incense sticks and praying to these idols, that their sins would be forgiven. But Jewel wasn't convinced, because Jewel felt whenever she prayed to these idols and these false gods, there was never any answer. Nothing ever happened as a result. And so she began to wonder, do these gods even exist? Or are they just false? And one day, Amy gave to Jewel a Bible, and Jewel read this Bible, and she realized this is the truth. There is a God who controls everything, who has made everyone, who's made me. But more than that, he sent his own son to die on the cross, that anyone who asks him for forgiveness can have their sins placed on him, and Christ's righteousness can be placed on the sinner, and that way the sins are forgiven. And it made sense to Jewel. She understood that there was a way for her sins to be paid for. But Jewel's family were still idol worshippers, and although Jewel was reading the Bible, she was having to do it secretly because she was afraid that her family might turn on her and kick her out of the family house. Jewel began to be concerned about praying to idols. She'd read in the Bible that we're not to have any other gods beside the one true God, and we're not to bow down to idols. So Jewel was faced with a dilemma. She couldn't keep worshipping idols, but if she stopped worshipping idols, she'd be thrown out of the family home. And so, in the end, Jewel had to go and seek refuge with Amy. And she did this by running to Amy's house one night, and all the family started looking for Jewel. And soon enough, they'd heard that Jewel had run away and gone to Amy Carmichael's home in the forest. And that night, all of the villagers gathered together and they marched over through the night with lit torches, and they surrounded Amy's house and they demanded that Jewel be brought out to them. And that's where we'll leave it.